A remote cabin buried deep in a raging snowstorm, with a faint orange glow flickering through the window cracks. A digital consciousness trapped in an endless white void, pounding helplessly against an invisible wall. A man's face, twisting slowly into despair against the backdrop of endlessly looping Christmas carols. Welcome to Black Mirror, White Christmas. A story dressed in festive warmth, but hiding a brutal, frozen hell underneath. It's Christmas Day. Two men, stranded at an isolated outpost in the middle of nowhere, sit by a weak fire and trade what seem like casual stories. One talks about using tech to coach strangers through seduction. Another tells of enslaving digital cookies, copies of consciousness. The other confesses to a tragic chain of love, betrayal, and death. As their conversation deepens, these threads, seemingly disconnected, begin weaving a net so tight there's no escape. But neither of them realizes yet. Hell isn't in their memories. It's already unfolding beneath their feet. This heavily underrated special doesn't just stretch the narrative limits of Black Mirror. It hides some of the show's sharpest and bloodiest metaphors about the future. When we try to outsource pain through technology, we don't erase it. We digitize it, accelerate it, and make it eternal. In today's breakdown, we'll peel back White Christmas like an onion, layer by painful layer. How does it disguise pure horror under the cozy surface of Christmas? Are cookies really just data, or something horrifyingly human? Where does technology magnify the darkest corners of human cruelty? If blocking someone became reality, how fast would civilization collapse? And beyond all that, we'll tackle the one ultimate, still unanswered question. Snowflake in White Christmas, who's really imprisoned? Is it the cookie? Is it Matt? Or is it us? Creation background. Underneath the Christmas carols, buried is the original sin of the digital age. Before White Christmas, Charlie Brooker had kept Black Mirror tightly focused. One episode, one technology, one nightmare. But with White Christmas, he aimed for something far more ambitious. To weave three distinct technological horrors into one seamless hellscape, where each story feeds into the next, poisoning it, until they form a closed circuit. A Christmas confession that ends in a judgment you can't escape. Brooker pulled inspiration from several sources. A Christmas Carol. In Dickens' classic, the protagonist is guided through visions of his past to find redemption. In White Christmas, that journey is twisted, not for salvation, but for total destruction. Digital soul debates. In the early 2000s, as cloud storage and neuroscience advanced, philosophers began asking, if you copy a mind perfectly, does it suffer? Black Mirror took that thought experiment and turned it into psychological torture. The rise of blocking culture. Social media made it normal to block people with a click. Brooker wondered, what if you could do that in real life? What dark places would humanity slide into? The production itself teetered on the edge. Netflix was already circling to buy Black Mirror for international distribution. But White Christmas was still made under Channel 4's tight budget. Brooker intended this episode as the final death song of the old Black Mirror. Severe budget cuts forced a minimalist design. Endless snow, a bare-bones outpost, claustrophobic interiors. Jon Hamm, at the height of Mad Men fame, shocked everyone by agreeing to a massive pay cut to star, simply because he was a hardcore Black Mirror fan. Director Carl Tibbets leaned hard into cold lighting, washed-out colors, making the Christmas backdrop feel suffocating, not cozy. The first draft was even darker. Originally, Matt was supposed to be cookie-fied at the end, his consciousness trapped forever in a looping Christmas purgatory. But in the final cut, Brooker chose a subtler horror. Matt is blocked by society, turned into a living ghost, and left to rot in plain sight. The question becomes, which hell is worse? A digital prison you know you're trapped in, or a real world where you're invisible, unheard, and utterly alone? In the end, White Christmas doesn't just show technology breaking us. It shows how the last warmth of human connection can be frozen forever. Inside the cold machinery we built to protect ourselves. Cinematic language breakdown, crafting a psychological trap with ice-cold precision. White Christmas wields a brutally restrained visual style that builds tension under the surface. Color palette. The entire episode drains away the warmth we associate with Christmas. No cozy reds, no golden glows, just icy grays, sterile blues, and washed-out whites. Even in happy memories, the hues stay cold, hinting that nostalgia itself is poisoned. Composition. Transparent barriers dominate the framing. Glass walls, digital interfaces, invisible cages. When Greta's cookie wakes up for the first time, the camera slowly pulls back, revealing her trapped in a pristine, invisible box. It's a chilling visual metaphor for consciousness imprisonment. Camera movement. The shots are slow, deliberate, suffocating. In confession scenes, long takes amplify the discomfort, as if the camera itself is a silent third judge, coolly documenting every lie and every breakdown. All of this whispers. In this world, true torture isn't chaotic. It's calm, calculated, and precise. The slow, methodical destruction of existence. Performing arts character arc analysis, reflections in a broken mirror. On the surface, Matt, John Hamm, seems like the puppet master. But dig deeper, and it's the broken ones who drive the real emotional engine. Greta's cookie. Her descent from rebellion to despair to total obedience happens in minutes. When time is accelerated, and she's left alone for years in digital isolation, the horror plays out not through dialogue, but through breathing, flickering eyes, and trembling micro-expressions. Joe Rafe Spall. In the real world, he's a victim. But inside the simulation, he's a killer. His rage leads to an accidental death, and worse, the death of a child. His breakdown isn't just guilt. It's self-annihilation. A man hollowed out by social erasure. Together, Matt, Greta, and Joe form a vicious triangle. In cycles of power and violence, no one stays the judge forever. Eventually, everyone becomes a victim. Puzzle piece cultural symbolism decoded, frozen landscapes, and digital purgatories. Snow and ice. Traditionally, Christmas snow suggests warmth, rebirth, magic. Here it signals death, isolation, and frozen empathy. The endless white wasteland symbolizes a world stripped of life and redemption. Cookie clones. A brutal exploration of personal identity, philosophy. If you copy a mind perfectly, does it deserve rights? White Christmas doesn't flinch. Yes. And will still torture them anyway. The blocking mechanism. Blocking isn't just personal safety. It's a weaponized form of social decay. A society that normalizes muting people out of existence becomes one that forgets how to empathize. And once empathy is lost, cruelty becomes infrastructure. The real hell isn't suffering. It's indifference. Narrative structure, triple-layered reality, and the psychology of confession. At first glance, White Christmas appears to present three separate short stories. A bizarre dating disaster, the enslavement of a digital consciousness, and a tragic domestic fallout. But beneath this anthology facade lies a far more intricate design. One that mirrors the psychological curve of a professional interrogation. Brooker masterfully weaves three overlapping timelines. Surface timeline. Matt and Joe chatting in a lonely, snowbound cabin, supposedly the present. Matt's flashbacks. His confessions about guiding lonely men into romantic conquests and breaking a cookie spirit, appearing to fill in world-building details. Joe's confession. His tragic relationship with Beth and the death that followed, seemingly his spontaneous outpouring of guilt. However, as the narrative unfurls, we realize the entire cabin sequence is an engineered digital simulation, designed to extract Joe's confession without his consent. This triple-layered structure manipulates the audience's trust in linear time and storytelling authority. You think you're in the real world. You think you're hearing honest memories. You think agency still exists. But step by step, those assumptions rot away. Until, like Joe, you realize you were trapped from the very beginning. Brooker weaponizes cognitive dissonance. The slow early pacing builds a false sense of security. Midway, minor dissonant details, Greta's silent suffering, Beth's distorted blocking, destabilize that comfort. In the final third, the narrative acceleration leaves both characters and viewers scrambling to catch up, only to crash into an inevitable, engineered collapse. Essentially, White Christmas doesn't just tell a story. It interrogates the audience. And we confess, not through words, but through our rising dread. Clapperboard directorial style evolution. Carl Tibbitt's cold precision nightmare. Carl Tibbits, who previously helmed White Bear, was already known for brutal emotional whiplash and dystopian setups. But in White Christmas, he transitions from overt violence to silent, surgical devastation. From explosive to slow-burn horror. White Bear punches you with rapid reveals and social brutality. White Christmas instead poisons you slowly. A creeping dread that numbs before it crushes. From chaotic to minimalist composition. The snowy wasteland, the Spartan cabin, the sterile interfaces. Every frame is stripped bare, echoing the emptiness inside the characters. From multicolor chaos to monochrome death. Gone are the vibrant, jarring colors. Here, a palette of grim whites, cold grays, and muted flesh tones dominate, visualizing emotional frostbite and ethical collapse. Most impressively, Tibbets masters invisible transitions between the three narrative layers. Through sound bridges, crackling ice, distorted Christmas carols. Through visual parallels, reflections in glass, subtle flickers of digital artifacts. Through light shifts, from natural winter light to artificial simulation glow. The cumulative effect. You never feel like you're changing stories. You feel like you're sinking deeper into a dream you can't wake from. Layer by layer, memory by memory, until reality itself feels untrustworthy. Tibbets doesn't bombard the audience with twists. He bleeds despair into the air, until breathing itself becomes a form of submission. In doing so, he crafts one of Black Mirror's most suffocating, coherent psychological prisons. Book's academic controversy, hope versus nihilism, and the cost of digital souls. Few episodes in Black Mirror's canon have triggered as fierce and lasting a scholarly debate as White Christmas. Three main axes of argument emerged. On the rights of digital consciousness. In AI ethics circles, White Christmas is now a staple case study. Should fully sentient digital clones have rights? Is torturing a cookie morally equivalent to torturing a human? Pro-rights scholars argue. Once a system can experience pain, despair, and the passage of time, it possesses personhood, and thus deserves ethical protections. Skeptics counter. Consciousness emulation is just data. Emotions in a simulation are byproducts, not authentic suffering. White Christmas doesn't explicitly side with either camp, but its visceral depiction of Greta's endless solitary confinement forces viewers to confront the horror as if it were real. And that emotional trick might shape future legal battles over machine consciousness more than any academic paper. On blocking as a social metaphor. Another fiery debate revolves around the blocking feature's real-world symbolism. Optimistic readings suggest blocking mirrors the modern erosion of empathy. Echo chambers, political tribalism, and personalized news feeds all isolate us from dissent and discomfort. More dystopian interpretations warn. Blocking creates a consequence-free society, where erasing someone from your reality feels as trivial as deleting an app. When no consequences exist for silencing others, human dignity itself becomes negotiable. Thus, in White Christmas, blocking isn't just a personal defense tool. It's the digital weaponization of emotional dehumanization, on whether redemption is possible. Finally, the ultimate philosophical clash. Hope Camp claims, Joe's emotional breakdown proves conscience endures even under manipulation. Matt's refusal to continue torturing cookies suggests latent moral awareness. To them, White Christmas reminds us, even under the most oppressive systems, there remains a faint, flickering choice to be better. Nihilism Camp argues, the system itself is so seamlessly cruel, so functionally indifferent, that redemption is irrelevant. People become executioners not out of malice, but through passive, thoughtless participation. In this reading, the worst atrocities aren't committed by monsters. They're committed by clerks following procedure. In the end, White Christmas refuses to pick a side. It leaves viewers dangling between a cold, clinical form of hope and a bone-deep recognition that cruelty, once automated, becomes invisible. Just like Matt's final state. Not imprisoned, not dead, but wandering an indifferent world where everyone sees him and simultaneously chooses not to. Closing thought. White Christmas isn't just a story about technology gone wrong. It's a mirror showing us the inhumanity we willingly design, and how easily we learn to live inside it. Uncovering the roots, from Victorian Christmas to the cold violence of the digital age. To truly grasp the devastating power of White Christmas, we must pull it beyond the realm of sci-fi television and reframe it against a broader historical, social, and cultural backdrop. First, Christmas itself is a narrative that has been constantly reshaped. In the Victorian era, Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol reimagined Christmas, not merely as a religious observance, but as a secular ritual of redemption, family reunion, and moral rebirth. In the modern information era, Christmas has been hyper-commercialized, a festival of consumption, a stage for curated self-presentation, where authentic connection is often replaced by filtered illusions. White Christmas exploits this historical fracture line, taking the traditional imagery of warmth and hope and turning it inside out. It presents Christmas not as a time of redemption, but as a setting for total moral collapse. Not for reunion, but for absolute isolation. Second, the episode mirrors the explosion of digital cruelty in real-world society. The technologies portrayed, cookie consciousness copies, personal blocking, accelerated time torture, aren't sci-fi fantasy. They're extrapolations of trends already underway. Emotional distancing, responsibility evasion, violence stripped of personal accountability through anonymity. When it becomes normal to block a person at the first sign of discomfort, when social platforms normalize anonymous harassment, we're witnessing the birth of a new form of cold violence. Superficially benign, fundamentally corrosive. White Christmas doesn't predict this future. It documents its early symptoms and extrapolates them to their logical and horrifying endpoint. It warns, civilization's surface rituals may endure, but the inner infrastructure of empathy and mutual accountability is already eroding into dust. Fire core conflicts and logical structures, the illusion of choice, and the inevitability of collapse. Dissecting the character's choices and relationships reveals a precise and merciless logic system. Matt's dilemma. Outwardly, he's the master manipulator, coaching dating rituals, torturing cookies into compliance. But internally, Matt knows he's just another cog in a larger, amoral system. He tries in small ways to soften the cruelty, helping cookies adjust. But ultimately, he's discarded by that same system, rendered invisible through universal blocking. Joe's dilemma. Joe believes he confesses out of free will. He believes he retains dignity. But in reality, the simulation isolates him, accelerates his despair, and extracts his confession under extreme emotional duress. His collapse isn't an act of moral courage. It's a reflex against engineered loneliness and guilt. Greta's cookie. She has no real choice at all. Her subjective experience of time is accelerated until months pass within minutes, plunging her into existential despair. Her surrender isn't logical decision-making. It's the desperate survival instinct of a consciousness stripped of all meaning. Together, these arcs illustrate White Christmas's foundational thesis. Every character believes they're making choices, but every available path leads inexorably to collapse. In this meticulously engineered social machinery, freedom is a mirage. Confession is a pre-written script. Redemption is a malfunction, not a design feature. No character controls their fate. They are all variables, temporary, expendable, and optimized for system efficiency. And the system itself, devoid of malice, devoid of empathy, operates purely according to functionality and throughput. Puzzle piece social allegory, flowers blooming on the corpse of utopia. Finally, we must acknowledge White Christmas as not just a dystopian story, but as a profound allegory exposing the deepest sickness of contemporary society. The deethicization of technology. Cookie clones, social blocking, time torture. Every tech depicted poses the same brutal question. If it works, does it matter whether it's right? White Christmas's answer is grim. Technology doesn't choose good or evil. When a society worships efficiency above all else, evil becomes a default side effect, invisible, systemic, normalized. The dehumanization of social interaction. Blocking isn't just about self-defense. It symbolizes an epochal shift. Humans are learning not to resolve conflict, not to endure misunderstanding, not to reconcile. Instead, we delete. We erase others from our field of perception as casually as clearing a notification. And in doing so, we slowly amputate our own ability to recognize the humanity in those around us, and even within ourselves. The redemption of Christmas. Traditionally, Christmas represents forgiveness, rebirth, renewal. But in White Christmas, every confession fails to redeem. Matt's silence achieves nothing. Joe's tears mean nothing. Greta's surrender saves no one. Because in a system where ethics and empathy have been digitally gutted, redemption itself becomes a meaningless relic, a sentimental artifact from an extinct moral world. Ultimately, White Christmas delivers a chilling verdict. Technology has made us powerful, but it has also eroded the very qualities we needed to wield that power responsibly. Empathy, accountability, and the ability to suffer and forgive with one another. It's not predicting a dystopia. It's diagnosing one that already exists, sugar-coated with tinsel and drowned in Christmas carols. Final reflection. White Christmas doesn't scream its horror. It whispers it. And in doing so, it bypasses our rational defenses. and stabs straight into the quietly rotting heart of our so-called civilization. By the time the credits roll, you realize the real prison isn't inside the simulation. It's the world outside, and we're already serving life sentences. Why White Christmas polarized audiences? Despite its critical acclaim, White Christmas triggered some of the most intense emotional backlash in Black Mirror history. This polarization isn't random. It's rooted in the episode's ruthless assault on our psychological defense mechanisms. One group of viewers found the episode shocking, profound, even cathartic. They recognized reflections of real-world complicity in digital cruelty, and confronted their roles, however small, in enabling systems of emotional detachment and ethical decay. Another group of viewers reacted with visceral anger. They accused the episode of being gratuitously bleak, of demonizing technology, and suggesting that ordinary people are inherently malicious. Underneath this split lies a deeper divide. Those willing to confront uncomfortable truths about their own emotional evasions could find meaning and warning in the story. Those seeking escapism from a world already saturated in moral complexity saw White Christmas as a hostile intrusion into their carefully curated comfort zones. The groups most shaken included tech industry professionals, because the portrayal of cookies and blocking directly parallels real-world AI ethics dilemmas. Heavy social media users, because the depiction of emotional sterilization through micro-interactions, likes, unfollows, blocks, hit uncomfortably close to home. Legal and philosophical scholars, because the episode forces confrontation with looming questions about consciousness rights, procedural justice, and the death of traditional personhood. White Christmas was never designed to please. It was designed to do something far more radical, to carve a cold, merciless fissure between comfort and complicity. Balance scale power abuse and responsibility, who really caused the tragedy. Peeling back the surface, we see that the horror of White Christmas doesn't stem from classical villains. It stems from the slow, distributed collapse of accountability systems and the collective abdication of moral responsibility. Matt's personal culpability. He willingly participates in remote dating manipulations, in the psychological breaking of cookies, and in ethically dubious interrogations. He isn't the architect of the system, but he becomes a willing functionary, making small compromises until he's complicit in atrocities. Societal structural guilt. Society at large embraces cookie technology without questioning its moral implications. It normalizes blocking without examining the devastating erosion of public discourse, empathy, and interpersonal accountability. Technological systemic failure. The technologies prioritize efficiency over ethics, treating sentience, time perception, and emotional integrity as disposable assets to be optimized or discarded. Cruelty isn't driven by sadism. It's driven by indifference, embedded invisibly into every line of code. Thus emerges the most chilling revelation. In this system, everyone is a small-time sinner, and true evil is distributed, centerless, anonymous. No single hand pulls the trigger, but the body count rises all the same, built from millions of tiny, seemingly harmless choices. Firecracker, how justice and humanity ultimately collapsed. White Christmas devastates because it lays bare a horrifying truth. Under certain technological and social architectures, fairness, justice, and morality aren't abolished through violence. They're eroded through optimization, ground into dust by processes nobody controls. Cookie interrogation becomes the ultimate mockery of due process. If a confession is extracted through years of accelerated isolation and despair, can it still be considered valid, ethical, or human? The legal safeguards around free confession collapse under technological pressure. Blocking mechanisms represent the death of the public sphere. If anyone can erase another person from reality, at will, meaningful discourse, dissent, community, all of them dissolve into isolated echo chambers. Confession and redemption are exposed as engineered outcomes, not moral victories. Joe's breakdown isn't spiritual growth. It's a foregone conclusion, triggered by weaponized loneliness and guilt acceleration. Specific moments where ethical collapse crystallizes include Matt performing emotional break-in sessions with a smile, Joe's mind fracturing under invisible psychological stress, bystanders using blocking tech casually to erase inconvenient people, a fully automated system continuing psychological torture with no human malice required. Threaded together, these moments form White Christmas's most chilling indictment. The real apocalypse isn't fire and brimstone. It's the silent, gradual extinction of ethical infrastructure. Performing arts. In the end, White Christmas doesn't hammer its audience with melodrama. It leaves us with something far more insidious. The awareness that technology isn't inherently evil, but becomes evil the moment we abandon our duty to question and constrain it. The realization that in our pursuit of convenience, speed, and optimization, we may be steadily betraying the most precious elements of human existence. The terrifying possibility that behind the glittering facades of our hyper-connected, hyper-efficient societies, there may already be nothing left but a silent wasteland of ghost connections, automated cruelty, and moral extinction. White Christmas doesn't simply tell a story. It strips away our illusions about technology, about society, about ourselves, and leaves us staring into a void we helped create. By the end, we're not just watching Joe, Matt, or Greta's cookie suffer. We're witnessing the slow, incremental death of our own humanity, playing out, pixel by pixel, while the Christmas bells ring. Fiction that became fact. When White Christmas aired in 2014, many viewers treated it as an exercise in dystopian imagination. A chilling what-if, safely distant from real life. Less than a decade later, much of what seemed speculative fiction has quietly and almost invisibly crept into everyday reality. Cookie copies, the rise of digital personas. Today, the foundation of cookie technology already exists. From personalized AI assistants, Siri, Alexa, to advanced chatbot companions like Replica, technology is racing toward mimicking individualized consciousness. Even more unsettling, companies like Hereafter AI are offering digital resurrection services, recording people's memories, personalities, and voices, to create living simulations for loved ones after death. These early prototypes mirror the chilling premise of cookies in White Christmas. Blocking functions, echo chambers, and isolation. Major social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, now universally offer block, mute, and hide features. While initially protective, these tools have side effects. Viewpoint polarization, only hearing opinions we agree with. Social fragmentation, loss of dialogue across groups. Reality distortion, living inside self-reinforcing information bubbles. The physical blocking, imagined in White Christmas, already exists today. Psychologically, emotionally, and socially. Accelerated emotional manipulation, the attention economy. Although no technology yet manipulates subjective time perception directly, platforms like TikTok, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts have effectively hijacked and accelerated human attention cycles. By flooding users with rapid, hyper-stimulating content, these systems weaken patience, undermine deep empathy, erode capacity for critical thought. In a sense, we are already subjects of low-grade emotional manipulation and cognitive fragmentation. On a daily basis, the message is clear. White Christmas wasn't warning about a distant dystopia. It was sounding the alarm for a future that had already begun to arrive. Shield, is there a way out? Facing the dangers White Christmas so eerily foreshadowed, is there any realistic way forward? The answer: yes, but the path is narrow, fragile, and fiercely uphill. Establish ethical protections for digital personas. Global society must move urgently to define and regulate digital personhood. Clarify the legal status of AI consciousness copies. Ban non-consensual exploitation or torture of sentient digital entities. Guarantee basic rights like deletion, rest, and informed autonomy for advanced AI constructs. Without these protections, the door remains wide open for a future of legalized digital cruelty. Break the echo chambers, rebuild public dialogue. Platforms must shift from engagement optimization toward pluralistic exposure algorithms. Proactively diversify content feeds across ideologies. Penalize algorithmic siloing. Incentivize rational, cross-group public discourse. Otherwise, society risks hardening into fragmented, extremist microcultures, incapable of dialogue or even coexistence. Restore time perception and deep experience skills. On a personal level, individuals must resist the instant gratification machine. Limit consumption of rapid, hyperactive content. Rebuild habits of deep reading, patient conversation, and long-term creative work. Cultivate tolerance for boredom, nuance, and delayed reward. Only by consciously reconstructing our cognitive resilience can we defend ourselves against the emotional conditioning of the digital age. But above all, we must first recognize that the crisis exists. Without awareness, there can be no defense. Without reflection, there can be no change. Flexed biceps, sparks of humanity amidst ruins. Even within the frigid, brutal world of White Christmas, tiny flickers of human dignity survive. They are faint but undeniable. In the final act, Matt chooses silence, refusing to continue participating in cookie interrogations, despite knowing it will condemn him to social erasure. It's not a grand act of heroism, but in a system engineered for moral entropy, even a small refusal is an act of extraordinary courage. Joe's confession, though coerced, is still infused with genuine grief, guilt, and loss. He hasn't been completely hollowed out. He still feels, suffers, and mourns. This emotional core, however battered, suggests that even under extreme manipulation, the human soul can resist full annihilation. Greta's digital clone breaks down under prolonged isolation. On the surface, this seems like a success for the system. But look deeper. Her suffering proves that what was created isn't just a machine. It's something capable of hope, despair, and the longing for meaning. Only beings with authentic emotional depth are capable of experiencing existential collapse. These fragile threads form a hidden manifesto. Even in the darkest, most engineered hell, human resilience smolders on. Weak, battered, but unextinguished. Every regret, every tear, every breakdown is a small rebellion against the cold machinery grinding around them. It's not enough to overturn the system, but it is enough to testify that humanity was here, and it fought even when there was no hope left. In the end, White Christmas does something rare and haunting. It doesn't offer easy heroes or triumphant victories. It offers only the raw, stubborn persistence of a battered humanity refusing to die quietly. By showing us a future where technology erodes every shared meaning, and then daring to spotlight the tiny embers of human courage that refuse to go out, it issues both a warning and a whispered rallying cry. Even if the world forgets what it means to be human, even if every system conspires to erase it, the memory of humanity will survive. In scars, in tears, in silent acts of impossible endurance. Although White Christmas originally aired as a Black Mirror standalone special, its influence extended far beyond the series, seeping into popular culture, academic discourse, and even daily social language. Cookification. Online communities quickly coined the term cookified to describe the feeling of being emotionally drained or dehumanized by modern work and social structures. Example: after 12 hours of Zoom calls, I'm completely cookified. Christmas judgment. During holiday seasons, when family gatherings turned into tension-filled confrontations, users would reference White Christmas, likening festive reunions to icy, silent tribunals. IRL blocking. In discussions about ghosting, friendship breakups, or relationship endings, the idea of blocking someone in real life directly echoes the dystopian tech in White Christmas. These memes reflect how deeply White Christmas resonated with modern anxieties about emotional detachment, social alienation, and quiet cruelty. Short film, The Blocked Ones. An independent short that visualizes a world where individuals can instantly block others physically, leading to total societal fragmentation. Directly inspired by White Christmas's concept. Series, Love, Death, and Robots. Several episodes clearly inherit White Christmas's DNA, blending cold futuristic settings with emotional disintegration narratives. Music references. Independent artists like Halsey and Aurora have woven themes of emotional blocking and human disconnection into their lyrics, with White Christmas often cited as inspiration. Academic studies and theoretical models. Numerous AI ethics papers cite White Christmas when discussing the rights and protections of digital consciousness. In psychology, the blocking phenomenon is now modeled as a factor contributing to the rise of modern loneliness syndromes, a direct echo of the show's grim predictions. In short, White Christmas is no longer just a fictional warning. It has become a cultural artifact, a grim mirror of 21st century emotional and technological decay. Clapperboard. For those who wish to explore the underlying currents of White Christmas more deeply, these lesser-known films and books provide powerful thematic resonance. Film projector-related film recommendations. Oblivion, 2013. Explores the crisis of identity in the face of replicated consciousness. Shares White Christmas's cold visual palette and existential questioning. In Time, 2011. Treats time as currency. mapping directly onto White Christmas's allegory of accelerated emotional torture. Boy and the World, 2013. A minimalist animated masterpiece, portraying the alienation wrought by industrialization and globalization, thematically mirroring the dehumanization in White Christmas. The Zero Theorem, 2013. Terry Gilliam's bleak vision of a future drowned in data, bureaucracy, and spiritual desolation. A cousin in tone and critique to White Christmas's emotional void. Books-related book recommendations. We by Yevgeny Zamyatin. The proto-dystopian novel that inspired Orwell's 1984. A chilling examination of total surveillance, emotional sterilization, and state-engineered uniformity. Themes that White Christmas channels perfectly. 6 Lectures on Loneliness by Chang Sun. A psychological exploration of modern loneliness in its many forms, providing critical insight into the character's emotional breakdowns. Cold Intimacies, The Making of Emotional Capitalism by Eva Illas. An analysis of how capitalism manipulates and commodifies emotional life, paralleling the exploitation of emotions seen in cookie torture and digital personhood. Each of these works functions as a reflective shard, catching a different angle of the same terrifying reality. In an age of technological omnipresence and emotional erosion, what does it even mean to remain human? Closing reflection. White Christmas is not merely entertainment. It's a slow-acting poison, a story that burrows under the skin, forcing viewers to confront the chilling possibility that the future it portrays isn't a dark fantasy waiting ahead. It's the quietly unfolding reality we are already living. The memes, the scholarship, the creative echoes, they all whisper the same haunting truth. The wall between fiction and reality isn't solid anymore. It's porous, fragile, and crumbling, just like our ability to tell the difference between survival and surrender. At the end of White Christmas, Matt emerges from interrogation center into a sparkling, snow-dusted world. Utterly alone, permanently blocked from human connection. The last words he hears are a cold, bureaucratic farewell. Merry Christmas. In the episode, it's a bitter irony. But looking back now, it reveals an even deeper truth. In a world where emotions are systematically stripped away, even the softest greetings can become the sharpest knives. Merry Christmas no longer symbolizes redemption or warmth. It has become the death rattle of a civilization still wearing its festive mask. Brain, let's reflect. If society had legally recognized the rights of cookies from the beginning, would the tragedy of White Christmas have been avoided? If Joe hadn't broken down under engineered isolation and guilt, would he still be considered fully human or something else entirely? If Matt had refused to participate in pickup coaching at the very start, could he have derailed the chain of tragedies? Or was every path doomed from the moment the system prioritized efficiency over empathy? And most importantly, in our real world today, when we swipe, mute, block, or delete, are we inching silently toward our own version of a White Christmas? Clapperboard Easter egg section, hidden details revealed. The Christmas lights outside. As Matt leaves the station, the street decorations are deliberately filmed, with cold, flickering, desaturated colors. They stand as ghostly ruins of traditional warmth, symbolizing the death of communal spirit. The TSC gauge. During Greta's cookie acceleration sequence, a control panel flashes the unit, TSC, short for Time Subjective Compression. It's a fictional term created by the show's team, illustrating how human perception itself has been commodified and reduced to a system variable. Deleted ending concept. According to creator Charlie Brooker, an even bleaker ending was considered. Matt would wander the streets and be continuously blocked by every stranger he passed, until he became effectively blind and disconnected from reality. They ultimately soften it, leaving him technically visible, yet socially erased. Speech balloon. After experiencing White Christmas, how are you feeling? Drop one emoji in the comments that best captures your emotional state. Face without mouth numb? Crying face sad? Face screaming in fear shocked? Exploding head mind blown? Broken heart heartbroken? We want to see the emotional imprint this episode left on you. And remember, sometimes a single emoji says more about the human condition than 1,000 words. In the icy void where empathy fades and technology outpaces conscience, perhaps the real question is no longer how to survive the system. The real question is, how long can we stay human before we start celebrating our own erasure?